I'm going to start putting the suspension under this frame today. This is my 66 Corvette, and I'm going with a RideTech suspension upgrade. All new front and rear suspension parts. So the first thing I'm going to do is get into these boxes and get the stuff sorted out, right side and left side. All right, let's take a quick look. Now this box here, I'll open it up later. That's what I'll need at the very end. That's the sway bar. So I've got upper and lower A-arms, or strong arms they call them, new hub, new spindles, all the steering linkage, tie rods, what have you, coilover shocks, and hardware. I notice inside here, these little packages are labeled. This one says steering linkage hardware kit, cross shaft to frame hardware, so that's nice. New bearings, a very, very complete kit, and all this stuff, it looks first class workmanship and quality on these products. This is the driver's side. Most of the hardware is in these bags for both sides. And I've got the passenger side laid out right over there. All kinds of instructions for each of these different components. So I'm going to get busy and go through the instructions now, and then I'll get busy putting it together. The first step is going to be drill out these holes to 3/4 of an inch. The way I'm going to do this is put one side on here, then I know what I'm doing, and then I will show you how it goes together on this other side over here. Both of these lower A-arms are stamped with either a P or a D. D for driver's side, P for passenger side. And there's really only one way it can go, because you got a single hole on the back side and then a little clamp that's going to go right here on the front side. So I'm putting the washer and the bolt, goes right through there. Then this big hole on the crossbar will go right up on the bolt. Get my nut started. Up front here, these two bolts go right here. And then this little saddle will hold it in place. Just like that. And the instructions say you may have to grind a little bit off of these surfaces here if they interfere. On this side here, I had plenty of clearance. Over here, it looks like I will have to take a little bit of material off of right there because that's got some interference. It's two different size washers. The big one goes on the front, the little one goes on the back. It's pretty obvious that that's how they go because this is recessed and the big one won't fit in here. Okay, I'm going to kind of be moving this as I tighten this bolt or this nut. And then when I feel some extra drag, I'll know I'm getting kind of close. I can go do the other side. Okay, I'm feeling a little extra drag right there. Okay, the nut's just starting to make contact with the washer, so I'm going to do the same thing over here. Tighten it down until I feel extra drag on it. Right about there. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten both of these a little bit at a time. I'll have about the same amount of a turn on each side and get it where it has plenty of drag on it but still movable by hand. That one there wasn't seated properly. Okay. That's pretty good right over there. Okay, that's got a certain amount of drag on it, but I can still move it up and down by hand. So I think that's good. I've got nice clearance right there after I ground that off. Next on the list is those coilover shocks, getting them installed. First I've got to put the shock together though. Got to remove this adjusting knob here. Remove this, remove that, that, and that. And this adjusting nut threads on there. And then got this Delrin washer that goes on here. And the spring goes on here. Another washer goes on here. This top piece goes on here. Then there's a little ring right here that goes on here. Just like that. And this will go on here. Then it'll go in the car, and then these other pieces go on top. That little collar just pushes up through the hole. This one goes on here. This one goes on here. And that goes on here. And need some resistance on these Delrin washers up here. So you want it tight, snugged good, but not so snug that this won't move around. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. And these things here go together like that. Pull this lower A-arm up into place. Just like that. Put the bolt in with a washer. It's got to come in from the back side because of the sway bar mount here. Won't let you put it in from up here. Another washer and the nut on here. Put this little adjusting screw back on, adjusting knob back on here. Time for the upper control arm. Okay, first we need to set this up. There's a couple of adjustments or a couple of things you've got to get right. The thickness of this inner part of this crossbar is not centered on the threaded portion. So I just rotated 180 degrees because that's what I need for a street setup. If you're going to be autocrossing or some kind of track racing, then you may want to have some negative camber pulling the top of the tire in, so as you're going around corners you have better tire patch contact. But on a street use, you don't need that. You'll just wear your tires out on the inside. So what you want is this little RideTech logo to be towards your wheel. So my wheel and tire is going to be out here, so this needs to be facing that way. If you were going to do a track setup, you could take this and rotate this around 180 degrees. Okay, so that's the first thing you got to make sure you've got set up the way you want it. And then after that, you've got these little caster slugs. And these ones here that come with the kit are to center your caster. But you can get slugs that will give you an 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, or 3/8 more caster, depending on how you're going to be using the car. The bolts to hold that A-arm in place are not supplied with the kit. You've got to use your originals that came out because they've got these little serrations on them right here. And they drive in there and hold themselves tight. Slides right on there like that. Now we got these two aluminum retainers go on here. This is kind of a similar process to what we did down below. Got to tighten it up till you start feeling some drag on it. And they're the same, right side, left side, same thing. There's only one way you can put them on because this is a bigger stud diameter than this one up here. So you can't get it on upside down. I'll install my little grease zerk fittings. One on the top and one on the bottom. Okay, here's the parts we got. This is the steering arm. it goes in here just like this. These little countersunk flathead bolts go in there. Like that. Goes right here like that. I'll just stick that in there to kind of hold it for a second. This big 5/8 bolt here goes up top here. They provide you with some Loctite. And then the steering stop, it goes just like this. And this bolt gets a washer on it. Now depending on what you're doing, if you're not going to be running the stock brake calipers, I don't think you're going to have exactly what I've got right here. But this setup is going to allow me to run my stock style brake calipers. I'm not going to be using stock ones. I've got some Willwood brake calipers that are bolt right on here. But they'll use the stock Corvette rotors. This bolt here gets torqued 130 foot-pounds. And these other three get 90 foot-pounds. Now for the front hubs. Now I've already packed the wheel bearings. I did these when I did the other hub there. When I say packed, I mean all the cavities between the rollers and the cage were packed full of grease. I don't just wipe grease around the outside of it. It's got to be packed full of grease. And now I can put my seal on here. The instructions say you should have between 1 and 8 thousandths of in play. So right there I've got about all 3 thousandths. So I think I'm good. I can stick my cotter pin in there. Put the dust cap on there. This is just a little piece of exhaust tubing that fits right over there. So I can knock that on without damaging the face of it or the top of it. And I don't know if all the suspension kits come with a hub, but because I bought the brake retention kit along with my suspension kit, well, it included the hub and the brake caliper mounting bracket. So my kit had this. I don't know if every kit will. An outer tie rod stud now gets mounted to each of the steering arms. it's tapered. The hole in here is tapered, so it just comes up through there. A little castle nut goes on there. Cotter pin goes in there. This is my stock original drag link that came off the car. I de-blasted it and painted it. Now the kit has these little tapered studs that go in here. These are, they call them the drag link studs. One goes right there, and one is going to go right here. And they will get a flat washer and a castle nut. And eventually a cotter pin. And the instructions say go tighten them up immediately, because we got to attach something on the back side here first. There we go. And these get 1/2-inch washers and these lock nuts. Now I can torque these down to 50 foot-pounds. Now I can assemble these tie rods. These heim joints are left-hand thread, and they say to have at least 15/16 of an inch engagement with this aluminum coupler. I just discovered something here. They've got holes drilled all the way through on these little extensions, so you can actually see the threads from both sides in there. So I made some minor adjustments here such that I've got an equal amount of thread showing in these holes when I've got my 15-inch starting measurement here. And the next step will be to attach these tie rods to the drag link assembly, and this portion goes inboard, and then this heim end is going to attach to those steering arms. This is tapered, so it can only really go one way. And then we got a cotter pin right here, which isn't lining up very good. So I think I need to take that off and put a washer behind there. Okay, I got the washer on there. That brings the nut up enough where the cotter pin fits in the little grooves, the castle part of it. And that completes that, a little assembly. Now I can put that in the car. This comes on here, and then there's a little spacer right there, and then the nut goes on there. Now I've got to torque these nuts down to 100 foot-pounds. And that pretty much completes the installation of all the RideTech parts. I've still got a little bit to do to complete the full suspension front end here. I've got to mount my steering box, get that hooked up. I need to put my brake rotors and my calipers on. But from a RideTech standpoint, that's all the parts that go with it. And I did have quite a bit of hardware left over. For some reason I had 2 sets of these stops. I had all these bolts, although I did see these are brake caliper bolts, so I probably can use those. And I noticed these bolts here say they're for the bracket and steering stop to spindle. So that would be these right here. But I already installed these, but I'm thinking maybe these are the correct ones because these are a grade 8 bolt, where these I think are only a grade 3 or grade 5. So I'm gonna pull these out, put some Loctite on these and install them. I'm not sure what those are for. And I'm not sure what all these other parts are for. This is another set of front spindle nuts, but I had them in there with my spindles, so I used the ones that came with the hubs, with the spindles. And it's possible, in the instructions they show 2 different types of spindles. A smooth hole spindle, which is what I have, and this threaded hole spindle. So maybe some of that hardware gets used if you're using the threaded hole spindle. Anyway, I've got some leftover hardware.